Chosen one, when money comes from God, keep quiet and stay wise. Do not scroll away from these words, because what you are about to receive may guard a blessing that heaven is already releasing into your hands. And if you ignore this gentle warning, you may misunderstand the very gift you have been praying for with tears. There is a sacred season opening before you, a season where provision will not come from noise, pride, or human approval, but directly from the quiet favor of God, who sees your hidden struggles and silent sacrifices. Type Amen if you believe. When money comes from God, it does not arrive to make you loud, careless, or boastful, but to test your heart, refine your character, and reveal whether you can carry abundance without losing humility. You must understand this now, because the difference between a lasting blessing and a short-lived gain rests in how quietly and wisely you hold what God places in your hands. There are moments in life when heaven opens a door that no human effort alone could unlock, and suddenly resources appear in ways that feel almost impossible to explain to those who doubted your journey. In those sacred moments, the temptation to announce everything, to prove yourself, and to show the world that you were right will feel strong and convincing. Yet the Spirit of God whispers something different, something gentle and firm, telling you to remain calm, steady, and grounded. The blessing was never meant to feed pride or invite unnecessary attention, but to strengthen your future and secure your calling. If this touches your heart, please take a moment to like this video, because your simple action helps this truth reach another soul who is standing at the edge of their own breakthrough. When money comes from God, it carries peace with it, and that peace is more valuable than the numbers you see in your account. It does not bring confusion, chaos, or restless nights filled with fear of losing everything overnight. Instead, it arrives like soft rain on dry soil, soaking into the hidden places of your life where hope once struggled to survive. The Lord releases provision with purpose, and that purpose often includes quiet preparation for something even greater than you can currently imagine. Type 1111 if you trust in God. There is wisdom in silence that many people do not understand, especially in a world that celebrates constant sharing and loud announcements. When God blesses you financially, He is not asking you to hide in fear, but to move in discernment and maturity. Not every blessing needs to be broadcast, and not every open door needs public applause to remain open. Sometimes, the greatest protection over a gift is your ability to guard it with humility and careful speech. The Lord sees the heart that resists showing off and instead chooses gratitude, and that heart becomes a safe place for greater increase. You have walked through seasons where your prayers felt heavy, where bills seemed larger than your courage, and where you wondered how long you could keep believing without visible change. In those nights, God was shaping something deeper than financial relief. He was forming patience, faithfulness, and quiet strength within you. When the money finally comes, it will not just be a reward, but evidence that heaven never forgot your whispered prayers. Yet this arrival is also a new beginning, not an ending, because abundance requires stewardship that matches its size. The chosen one does not simply receive, but learns to manage, protect, and multiply with wisdom, guided by the Spirit of Christ. Jesus lived in simplicity, even though all power and glory belonged to Him, and that humility reveals the pattern for every believer who is entrusted with increase. True wealth in the kingdom of God is never measured only by possessions, but by the condition of the soul that holds them. If your heart remains soft, generous, and grounded in gratitude, then money becomes a tool for love rather than a trap for pride. God desires to place resources in the hands of those who will bless others quietly, support good works faithfully, and build foundations that honor his name without seeking personal glory. In this way, financial increase becomes a ministry of compassion and wisdom rather than a performance for attention. There will be people who notice changes in your life and begin to ask questions, offering curiosity that sometimes carries hidden motives beneath friendly words. Not everyone who smiles at your success understands the cost of your obedience or the tears you shed before your breakthrough arrived. This is why staying wise matters so deeply, because discernment protects what excitement might accidentally expose. You are not called to live suspiciously, but you are called to live prayerfully and thoughtfully. The chosen one listens more than they speak, observes more than they reveal, and trusts God to defend their blessing without unnecessary explanations. When provision comes from God, it often carries instructions that are just as important as the money itself. There may be a quiet nudge to invest carefully, to give generously in secret, or to save diligently for a future assignment. These inner promptings are not random thoughts, but gentle guidance from a loving Father who sees beyond today's celebration into tomorrow's responsibility. Obedience in small decisions preserves the blessing for larger purposes. Staying wise means inviting God into every financial choice, even when the numbers look comfortable and secure. Your story is not meant to mirror the loud success stories that chase validation from crowds, because your calling is shaped by intimacy with Christ rather than applause from strangers. When you remember who the source is, gratitude replaces anxiety and humility replaces arrogance. The blessing does not change who you are, it reveals who you have become through faith. Some will celebrate your growth with sincere joy, while others will feel unsettled by the evidence of God's favor resting upon your life. In this delicate season, wisdom becomes your shield and humility becomes your covering, protecting both your peace and your purpose. Type yes to affirm. There is a sacred difference between wealth that is chaste and wealth that is entrusted, because one is fueled by restless striving and the other flows from divine alignment. When money comes from God, it does not carry the heavy pressure of proving yourself to the world, but instead carries a quiet assurance that you are walking in step with His timing. This kind of provision feels steady rather than frantic, and it builds slowly like a strong foundation beneath a house that will stand through storms. The chosen one understands that peace is the true sign of divine supply, not speed, not applause, and not comparison. Remaining quiet allows that peace to remain undisturbed, guarding your spirit from the noise that often follows visible success. You may notice that as resources increase, invitations will increase as well, along with expectations, opinions, and advice from people who suddenly feel connected to your journey. Not every suggestion is harmful, but not every suggestion is wise for your specific calling either. The Spirit of God often leads gently and privately, guiding you in ways that do not always make sense to observers who only see the surface of your life. Staying wise means filtering every opportunity through prayerful discernment instead of emotional excitement. Silence gives you room to hear God clearly before making decisions that shape your future. In the life of Jesus, there was constant awareness of purpose, and even though He carried authority beyond measure, He moved with intentional restraint and deep compassion. He never used power to impress crowds, but used it to restore, heal, and uplift the brokenhearted. This example teaches you that financial authority should also be used with care and kindness rather than display. Money from God is not a spotlight to stand under, but a lamp to quietly brighten dark corners where hope has nearly faded. When you understand this, generosity becomes natural and gratitude becomes constant. There will be moments when you feel tempted to explain your success to those who once doubted you, as if their approval would somehow validate the journey you endured. Yet God does not bless you so that you can rewrite old arguments or settle past misunderstandings. He blesses you so that you can move forward unburdened by resentment and free from the need to prove anything. The chosen one releases the desire for recognition and embraces the deeper joy of obedience. Quiet wisdom protects your heart from reopening wounds that time and faith have already healed. As your financial landscape shifts, your habits must shift as well, because stewardship is the bridge between receiving and sustaining. Careful planning, thoughtful giving, and disciplined saving become acts of worship when done with a heart aligned to God's guidance. The blessing was not given to create recklessness, but to establish stability and prepare you for greater assignments. Even small daily choices can determine whether abundance grows or quietly slips away. Staying wise means respecting the responsibility that comes with increase, treating every resource as sacred rather than casual. You may feel an inner pull to bless others anonymously, to support causes quietly, and to lift burdens without attaching your name to the outcome. This desire reflects the heart of Christ, who often moved in compassion without seeking attention for every miracle performed. Hidden generosity carries a special beauty because it keeps your motives pure and your joy untainted by public praise. When you give in secret, you experience the deep satisfaction of knowing that God sees what others do not. In this way, your financial blessing becomes a channel of grace flowing silently into the lives of others. At times, silence may feel misunderstood by those who expect detailed explanations about your plans and decisions. They may assume distance where there is actually discernment, or secrecy where there is simply maturity. The chosen one accepts that not everyone will understand the wisdom of restraint, and that is perfectly acceptable. Your responsibility is not to manage every perception, but to guard the integrity of what God has placed in your care. Quiet strength often speaks louder through consistent actions than through persuasive words. Money that comes from God should deepen your dependence on Him rather than replace it, because true security has never been rooted in numbers alone. As your resources grow, your prayer life must grow even more, anchoring your heart firmly in the source rather than the supply. Gratitude becomes a daily practice, reminding you that every opportunity, every open door, and every breakthrough originated from divine mercy. When humility remains at the center of your success, pride loses its opportunity to take root. Staying wise means remembering that God is the foundation beneath every visible achievement. There will be days when unexpected challenges arise despite your newfound stability, reminding you that life continues to require faith regardless of financial position. In those moments, your trust in God's character will matter more than your balance sheet. The chosen one understands that provision is not a replacement for reliance on Christ, but an extension of His care. Peace comes from knowing that the same God who provided before will continue to guide and sustain you ahead. Type 2323 if you agree. The blessing you receive is not only about comfort, but about calling, because resources often prepare you for assignments that require both compassion and capacity. There may be dreams placed in your heart years ago that seemed impossible due to limited means, and now those dreams begin to feel attainable through divine provision. This is where wisdom becomes essential, ensuring that you move at God's pace rather than rushing ahead of His direction. When you stay quiet and prayerful, you allow divine timing to unfold naturally, without forcing outcomes. The chosen one trusts that every step will be revealed at the right moment. As you walk through this season of increase, let your heart remain soft and your spirit remain teachable, because growth is not only financial but spiritual. The more you receive, the more you are invited to reflect the generosity, patience, and mercy of Christ in your daily interactions. Wealth that is carried with humility becomes a testimony of God's faithfulness rather than human achievement. The enemy of your soul would prefer that you measure yourself by what you now possess, rather than by the grace that saved and sustained you through seasons of lack. This is why staying quiet and staying wise is not only practical advice, but spiritual protection for your heart. Type 2020 to claim miracles. Your identity has never been your income, your status, or the lifestyle you can now afford, because your true worth was settled long before any financial shift occurred. You were chosen by God in moments when your pockets felt empty and your future seemed uncertain, and that calling did not depend on visible prosperity. If you forget this, wealth can begin to shape your sense of importance in subtle ways, creating distance between you and the simplicity of faith that once carried you through hardship. The chosen one remembers that the same knees that bent in prayer during struggle must still bend in gratitude during abundance. Humility keeps your heart steady when circumstances change. There is also a temptation to upgrade every visible part of your life immediately, to surround yourself with symbols that prove to others, and perhaps to yourself, that you have finally arrived somewhere significant. Yet wisdom asks a different question deep within your spirit, not about what you can display, but about what you are called to build. Money from God is often meant to establish stability, create security for future generations, and strengthen foundations that will outlast temporary trends. Quiet planning honors the blessing more than loud spending ever could. The chosen one sees beyond the moment and considers the legacy being formed through each decision. In this sacred season, patience becomes an expression of trust, because not every desire must be fulfilled instantly simply because it is now affordable. There is beauty in waiting, even when you have the ability to act quickly, because restraint reveals maturity that numbers alone cannot demonstrate. Jesus moved with deliberate purpose, never rushed by pressure from crowds, and never distracted by opportunities that did not align with his mission. That same spirit of intentional living now invites you to move thoughtfully, guided by prayer rather than impulse. Staying wise means allowing God to shape your timing as much as your provision. You may begin to notice subtle shifts in how people approach you, as some conversations revolve more around what you can offer than who you are. This realization can feel heavy, especially when relationships begin to change in ways that are difficult to explain. Staying quiet in such moments protects you from reacting emotionally or speaking from frustration. Discernment grows when you pause, observe patterns, and seek God's guidance before responding. The chosen one understands that not every relationship can go with you into every new season, and releasing certain connections peacefully is sometimes part of remaining wise. There is also a responsibility to guard your inner life carefully, because abundance can fill your schedule quickly if you allow it to, leaving little room for stillness and communion with God. Financial growth often brings new tasks, new investments, and new opportunities that demand attention. Yet your soul still requires the same quiet time with Christ that sustained you before, perhaps even more than before. Without consistent spiritual grounding, success can slowly replace devotion without you noticing the shift. Staying wise means protecting your prayer life as fiercely as you protect your resources. When you handle money from God with integrity, you reflect His character in practical ways that influence those around you quietly but powerfully. Paying fairly, honoring commitments, and acting transparently in business decisions become acts of worship when done with sincerity. The chosen one does not cut corners simply because no one is watching, because integrity is not dependent on an audience. Every honest action strengthens the foundation beneath your blessing. In this way, your prosperity becomes a testimony of righteousness rather than a cause for suspicion. There will be moments when you feel led to step out in faith, investing in dreams or supporting visions that require courage as well as resources. Wisdom does not mean fearfully holding back from every risk, but carefully discerning which risks align with God's direction for your life. Quiet confidence grows when decisions are made after prayerful reflection rather than public pressure. You do not need to announce every move or justify every strategy to those who do not share your calling. The chosen one trusts that obedience matters more than external approval. Gratitude must remain active and visible in your heart, not only expressed in words but reflected in how you treat others who are still walking through seasons of struggle. Remembering your own past challenges cultivates compassion that shapes your generosity and your conversations. Money from God should never create distance between you and those who need encouragement, because Christ consistently drew near to the weary and overlooked. Staying wise includes staying approachable, kind, and grounded regardless of outward change. Type 1212 if you walk by faith. There is profound strength in moving quietly while allowing your life to speak through consistent character and gentle influence. The world often equates visibility with value, but the kingdom of God values faithfulness above fame. When you choose silence over boasting and wisdom over impulse, you align yourself with a higher standard that honors Christ. Your peace remains intact because you are not constantly managing impressions or defending your success. The chosen one rests in the assurance that God's approval is enough. As this season unfolds, you may sense that financial blessing is only one layer of a deeper transformation happening within you. Growth in patience, discernment, and maturity accompanies the visible increase, shaping you into a vessel capable of carrying greater responsibility. Staying quiet allows that inner transformation to take root without distraction. Resources often arrive when heaven is preparing you to influence, to build, to restore, and to uplift in ways that require both faith and capacity. Staying quiet protects the sacred strategy unfolding around you, and staying wise ensures that you recognize when to act and when to wait. Type 1919 to receive miracles. There are dreams that once felt distant and unreachable during seasons of lack, and now they begin to surface again with new possibility because provision has made room for action. Yet, wisdom reminds you that not every revived dream is meant to be pursued immediately, because timing is as important as desire. The Lord often develops character before he expands territory, ensuring that your inner foundation can sustain the weight of external growth. Quiet reflection becomes a powerful tool in this stage, allowing you to examine motives, confirm direction, and align your plans with divine guidance. The chosen one understands that haste can weaken what patience would strengthen. Increased resources may also open doors to influence that you never expected, placing you in rooms where decisions are made and opportunities are shaped. Influence can be more delicate than money itself, because it carries the power to affect the lives of many people beyond your immediate circle. Staying wise means remembering that influence must be carried with humility, compassion, and deep awareness of responsibility. The example of Jesus reveals leadership rooted in service rather than dominance, and that model now becomes your guide. When you choose to lead quietly and serve faithfully, your influence reflects the heart of Christ rather than the ambition of ego. There may be moments when you feel prompted to support ministries, community efforts, or individuals whose needs resonate deeply with your spirit. In those quiet nudges, you sense that your provision is connected to someone else's prayer for breakthrough. Acting on those promptings requires discernment, ensuring that generosity is guided by wisdom rather than emotional pressure. Quiet giving often carries greater impact than public announcements because it keeps the focus on God's goodness rather than personal recognition. The chosen one understands that blessings multiply when they flow through willing hands rather than being tightly controlled. At times, financial growth can create internal fear, especially the fear of losing what has been gained after so much waiting and believing. This fear can subtly influence decisions, leading to overprotection, hesitation, or anxiety that steals the joy of abundance. Staying quiet allows you to confront those fears privately before God, surrendering them in prayer rather than projecting them onto others. Staying wise means trusting that the same God who provided once is fully capable of sustaining and guiding you forward. Peace returns when your confidence rests in His faithfulness rather than in your own ability to maintain control. You may also discover that success requires boundaries because not every request can be fulfilled and not every expectation can be met without compromising balance. Learning to say no with grace becomes an important part of stewardship, protecting your time, energy, and resources from being stretched beyond healthy limits. Boundaries are not signs of selfishness when they are established with love and clarity. The chosen one recognizes that overextension can weaken both spiritual focus and practical effectiveness. Wisdom helps you discern where to give generously and where to stand firm. In this stage of growth, your relationship with Jesus must remain central because intimacy with Him provides clarity that money alone can never offer. Regular moments of stillness, reflection, and gratitude anchor your heart in truth when distractions multiply. Wealth can easily create noise in the form of opportunities, invitations, and responsibilities, but the quiet voice of God remains your most reliable guide. Staying wise includes intentionally creating space for that voice to be heard clearly. When you prioritize communion with Christ, decisions become steadier and your spirit remains calm even amid expansion. It is also important to guard against subtle comparison, because as your life changes you may begin to measure your progress against others who appear more advanced or more celebrated. Comparison can rob you of contentment and distort your perception of what God is uniquely doing in your story. The chosen one remembers that every journey unfolds at a different pace and under different assignments. Staying quiet helps you avoid the trap of constantly explaining or defending your path. Staying wise keeps your eyes focused on your calling rather than on another person's timeline. There is beauty in slow, steady growth that honors God step by step rather than chasing dramatic leaps that lack foundation. Money from God often builds gradually, reinforcing stability through consistent stewardship and faithful obedience. Each wise decision becomes a brick laid carefully into a structure designed to endure beyond temporary seasons. The chosen one values sustainability over spectacle, understanding that longevity matters more than sudden visibility. In this way, your prosperity becomes deeply rooted rather than fragile. As you continue forward, allow gratitude to shape not only your prayers but your daily attitude toward both small and large blessings. Gratitude softens the heart and prevents entitlement from taking root, keeping your spirit aligned with humility. Remembering where you started protects you from arrogance and deepens compassion for those still walking through financial challenges. Type 666 if you trust Jesus. The path of the chosen one is not defined by how loudly success is displayed, but by how faithfully it is managed and how sincerely it reflects the character of Christ. When money comes from God, it is a sign of trust, not merely a reward, and that trust invites you into deeper responsibility and greater purpose. What looks like surplus now may become the very tool that funds healing, restoration, and opportunity for others tomorrow. Staying quiet keeps your focus steady on long-term purpose rather than short-term excitement. Staying wise allows you to build with eternity in mind rather than with impulse in heart. You may sense that God is teaching you patience in new ways, even when your resources are sufficient to move quickly in almost any direction. This patience is not limitation, but refinement, shaping your character to match the scale of your blessing. When you resist the urge to rush, you develop depth that cannot be purchased or imitated. Jesus walked with calm assurance even when urgency surrounded him, demonstrating that divine timing never panics. The chosen one learns to move at heaven's pace, trusting that delayed action can sometimes produce stronger results than immediate reaction. There is also a spiritual discipline in living below your means, even when you are capable of living far above them. This discipline preserves flexibility, guards against pride, and creates space for future assignments that may require swift generosity. When you choose moderation over extravagance, you demonstrate that money serves you rather than controls you. Staying quiet about your capacity protects you from unnecessary expectations and comparisons. Staying wise keeps your focus on purpose rather than appearance. As influence and stability grow, you may feel called to mentor, encourage, or quietly guide those who look to you as an example of faithfulness rewarded. Your story carries weight, not because of the numbers attached to it, but because of the perseverance and trust that shaped it. Sharing wisdom selectively and thoughtfully allows others to benefit from your journey without exposing every detail of your life. The chosen one understands that transparency and privacy can coexist in healthy balance. Guarding certain aspects of your life does not diminish authenticity, but protects sacred ground from unnecessary intrusion. There will be seasons when generosity stretches you beyond comfort, inviting you to give in ways that require faith rather than calculation alone. In those moments, wisdom does not disappear, but it collaborates with trust, allowing you to step forward confidently after prayerful discernment. Money from God is often intended to circulate, to flow outward in measured ways that expand impact without draining stability. Quiet obedience in giving brings deep joy that public recognition can never match. The chosen one discovers that the greatest satisfaction comes not from possession, but from purposeful distribution. You may also encounter subtle spiritual opposition, because blessings aligned with God's purpose can attract resistance from forces that do not celebrate your growth.